All right, good afternoon, everybody. It's good to see some of you here. Um, Let me get started. We are having some technical difficulties on our end. Josh's face may not get seen today, which is disappointing because he always rocks a fabulous bow tie. Um, but the show must go on, and we're going to continue to move forward appropriately. So first and foremost, welcome to the jungle. I think of all years that we could think that is a jungle, this is the one we're in. The important reason why we're here is to really talk about what's going on around us right now. What can we do about our application, either issues, mishaps, steps, and really the focus here is yield. So as we're going in here, it seems it gets worse every day. And right now, with some technical difficulties, I'm feeling that pain. My kids were just home the last 3 days with the unbearable cold. There's always something, but it's how we look at it. It's how we continue to move forward after what happened. So I want to jump in and let Josh introduce himself. If he's hard to hear, can you guys please let me know in the chat? Josh, I'm going to let you quickly introduce yourself and start it off.
Awesome. Thanks, Corey. And yeah, you gotta love some technical difficulties. And like you said, we're all feeling it, right? Like this is unfortunately this is kind of the new normal for us. And so I'm super thrilled to be here today, even if it is just in my voice alone. Most of you fortunately probably get bypass my face, so that's not necessarily a bad thing. But yeah, super excited to be sharing this information. I know that we've got a lot of folks who are here today that really need some information on this, and so we're excited to share it. I have been in higher education for about 15 years, coming from a wide variety of different institutions, all within kind of the admissions realm, across large private or large public school through a very small private school. So a lot of different types of experience, and it's my bloodline. I live and breathe admissions and enrollment, and so excited to be here. Thanks.
Thanks, Josh. I got your feedback, everybody. I'm going to see Josh, if you're on speaker, can you get off speaker and maybe put a headset on? Or we'll continue to work on that to make it a little bit better.
Sure, we'll try this.
That I think that's already a little bit better.
Awesome, okay.
Yep. So Josh kind of introduced himself. So as Josh said, my name's Corey Baker, and we are the two enrollment guys, and we say that for a reason, because Josh and I kind of grew up, as most higher ed folks do. I fell into higher ed, graduated from the school, 2 months later started working there. I know that's a case for a lot of us, and so we really enjoy higher ed. We like talking higher ed. We've worked in it. Over 20 years combined, well over 20 years. And for me, my background, for those who haven't been to a webinar yet, kind of done it all, a lot of more in the traditional side. So I have done freshman recruitment, transfer recruitment, been in charge of visit experiences in my previous days. Also got to integrate with CRMs and implement CRMs throughout my time, and then manage the CRMs, manage communication flows, kind of all on that traditional undergrad side. Then went kind of to the marketing side, did a marketing manager for an adult and online program, and then worked for a CRM company for a while in implementation and project management. And then finally, where I'm at now, working on the agency side, I kind of flipped over to the other side, but excited to bring all that higher ed experience to you in this realm. And I think in a lot of ways, I think a little more like a higher ed than a traditional agency that may or may not have a lot of higher ed experience, where, you have Josh and myself and a lot of our teammates who have higher ed specific experience that helps out. And so one thing you've kind of noticed already, today is going to be an 80s rock edition of the Two Enrollment Guy webinar. We are super excited about that. I for sure am. I pulled out my little more progressive rock than 80s hair brand, but Rush is by far my favorite band, and so had to represent them today. But I want you all to kind of think, without ignoring the content, how many 80s references we make throughout this presentation. At the end of the presentation, we're going to ask you if you could, we'll make a post in the Media Cross LinkedIn channel. And if you could put your results there of how many you think, we may have a gift for the person who gets closest to it. I believe if you count the chat, we are at 4 current 80 Rock references, either by band names or song titles or lyrics. So as we go along, it will be a little cheesy. I was born to do cheesy in this way. And so we're excited to start. So first comes first, bad medicine. It's the end of the world as we know it. And COVID has many of us doing the safety dance. We're looking around our campuses. How do we keep our students safe? How do we keep our staff safe? And then on the other side of it, in the recruitment world, we're dealing with students who may or may not know what they are doing. They're a little scared. They feel behind. They've been in virtual learning. So they're catching up. So what we're curious about, and we're going to want you to post in the chat, and Josh is in the chat, so he can help me there, and we can continue to chat back and forth, is what is the specific challenge related to yield that you are constantly under pressure about from your leadership that makes you want to jump up and bang your head? What is that that challenge? And I want you to be as specific as possible. Like, is it you're not in front of them? What are you feeling as the greatest challenge right now? Anyone having some challenges?
I can start. At my former institution, one of the biggest challenges, we had plenty of admits. We had the pool in the pipeline for admits, but when it came down to actually transitioning them from the admitted population to get them to enroll, to get them to do what I needed to do, was a huge challenge for a variety of reasons.
Yeah, and I see SAT and ACT in here. Obviously, this is a huge factor on multiple levels. Obviously, for students feeling they haven't rounded out their college experience because they've been told, and some schools still require the ACT, SAT, or for the time being they're going blind or going optional, but maybe they're not getting everything they need for their admitted understanding. But then on the reverse side of that, which our next webinar in 2 months, we're going to be talking about search, is if they're not taking the scores and you're not buying those names, you don't have those names. So, thinking about creative ways, which we'll talk about in 2 months, of, how do we get more students in this pipeline?
100%. Absolutely right.
The in-person's common here. We're not seeing each other in person, and this is which goes right along with the next one, the virtual world fatigue. Definitely feel it. Moving from pending to enrolled. Sorry, just going down, checking some of these out and getting a little mental. So virtual visits, financial aid is one we're going to be talking about as well as just generally the pending from enrolled, which I think, it's going to be a big theme this year, is, the funnel. Well, everything's just thrown out the window more than just, we all say it got shift back, but really it's all over the place. We can't just say, it shift back, May 1 now just becomes June 1. And that's not how it's going to work this year, especially with some of the financial aid, students, many articles out there right now about students holding on and wanting to compare and contrast financial aid packages as well. FAFSA completion. Perfect. So, we are going to be hitting on a lot of these as we move along here. And Josh already mentioned, we're going to talk a little bit about local as well. So Josh, I'm going to send it over to you.
Absolutely. All right. So shout through the heart, all right? We are all feeling this. This is something we really are just all devastated kind of by what's happened, not only from like a pandemic and the crisis that brings in itself and how many folks have died from it, but just all of the trickle down that's coming to us that's making our lives a little bit more difficult. And I promise we are going to touch on this, but it's stuff that you already know. It's information that's out there that it's a lot of gloom and doom, but I promise we're going to get you some stuff that's going to help you alleviate some of that doom and gloom. So, yeah, so let's talk about kind of what we know right now about 2021, 2022, or really not 2020, 2021, I should say. So it's not looking particularly well. Apps are down across the board. We had a 13% decline in freshmen this year across the board. 20% of that was, or 20% alone was a decline in community colleges for first year enrollment. And we know, again, apps are down, fatigue is high. Students of color and lower income students are impacted at significantly higher rates. And schools that were doing okay before the pandemic are still kind of doing okay. They're not growing as much as they probably want to be, but they're hanging in there. And again, everyone, for the most part, is on the struggle bus. We're all feeling it. If there's any comfort here whatsoever, it's knowing that we're in this together, truly. And I hate that statement, but we're all in the same boat. We're all feeling it. So we just need to figure out collectively how to get past it. FAFSA filers are down. They're down about 10% in new FAFSA filers, which is not good for kind of looking forward. And everyone is looking for the big money. This year we heard a lot of students and families saying, I didn't apply early admission because I'm not going to be able to look at financial aid packages and compare them one-to-one. Finances are going to be a huge player this year, and it more than ever will be some of the deciding factors where students go, because they are looking for that big money. They're looking for, when the pocket strings are tight, it's going to come down to money more so than experience. So how do we, what do we do with this? We know it's not a great situation. What are we getting out of this, right? And so definitely yield is going to be critical. That is 100% where we're at, is that, application numbers for most of you are probably down. So it's critical that those that you have in front of you, you stay in front of. And I know that's a challenge, as you guys are saying, I can't get in touch with them. I try connecting virtually. I try connecting over the phone and I just can't. So how can I keep them in front of me when I physically cannot make that communication? And we'll get to a little bit about that. And it kind of goes into, keep from saying another one bites the dust. We have to fight for every student. This is, if a student will a lot of times say, it's financial, I just can't go. We need to lean into that, because financial means, can they truly not afford it? Did a family member lose a job and they are just absolutely cannot afford it? Or is it value? Is it a value proposition? Do they not see the value of the tuition that they're paying, because maybe they're going virtual next year and they don't see paying full tuition for a virtual class? So don't let them out early. Really get to what that concern is before you let them walk out the door.
Yeah, Josh. With that, I was leaning in as much as you can to these students and empathize and sympathize with them. I remember, before pandemic, but, being that I worked at a private school that had a little bit higher cost out the gate, people tried to bail out before they had their full financial aid package. And even once they started getting that, other schools were giving more, but they cost more. And some, it sounds silly to say that, but some students and parents didn't realize that even though they gave more out of pocket, the scholarship money, it was less out of pocket to still come to the school that I was working. And it's so really having those conversations, keeping them on the phone, spending that extra, 15, 30 minutes with them to break down the numbers, even if it comes down and it means they are truly going to walk away from your school, or, if there's supplemental funding or if there's other scholarship for them to apply to, digging in to find out what else they qualify for. It's going to be huge.
Absolutely. And again, really, I think you mentioned a good point of being empathetic. There is a lot that's going on. So you can't bulldoze them and try to aggressively go for it. You have to listen to them. You have to take into consideration, but do it with a heart of love. And remember why you're fighting so hard for them. It's because ultimately you know that this is the best decision for them.
Yeah.
And then I met with you. So this is, we talked about, and there's been a couple mentions in the chat about melt and melt being such a concern. Melt starts immediately. So you could almost even say that it's not really going to exist because it's going to exist for everybody. So even for your populations that typically don't melt, you need to consider them a high melt opportunity because this year is so different. So this option of high melt, low melt, everybody's high melt. Everybody is looking at the potential of not enrolling for a variety of reasons. So you really have to treat all of your students as if there's a possibility that they may not show up in the fall.
For sure. So never say goodbye, and I want to break free. So there will be times, if you came to our App Gen conversation, you come to today for yield, we're going to sound like a broken record a little bit. And I hope it sticks in because if we're saying it over and over again, it's because we mean it and we need to trim some of the fat. So first and foremost, on your students, what questions are you asking of them throughout their journey and to the point that you have them now where you're running up against where they've deposited and they're trying to make decisions, or you're wanting them to deposit in so that they're a little bit more secure, even though we're still going to be worried about the yield. But what is the data and where is it stored? And the big reason I'm asking that is it stored in a way that you can very easily filter and get that data, or is it in, sometimes if you ask a question and it's an open text box with a bunch of commas, it's really hard to sort. It's almost like open-ended questions. You got to really go in each one and look. But are the questions you asking put and stored in a way that you can actually use that data? Some of the really easy ones I think about, have you ever asked for, can I text you and never text them? Low-hanging fruit. Obviously, there may be a little bit of cost associated with texting, but it is another method in which to get in front of them. And if you already have asked them this question, you can go that route. Or do you want to send out, a small survey asking for that? Did you ever ask for social channels, but you never actually connected and had a social conversation with these students? We would always use them before, on smaller visit programs at our school. We would ask for social on those events specifically because we knew it'd be manageable. And we literally sent a message to each one, within the week to 2 weeks before, saying like, we're so excited that you're coming to our visit day. If you need any help, let us know. It meant a lot. It also cleaned up our no-show rate because we knew who was and what wasn't coming ahead of time. But it's another channel in which you can connect with them a little bit. And if you don't have the data, what are some of those quick data points that you would like that you can ask in quick surveying questions to easily, one, engage the students? So engaging is part of that yield. And two, connect with the students and learn a little bit more about it. And this we'll talk about a little bit more later about what kind of data are we asking for and why. But we're really trying to find that way of connecting with the student in a unique way. And then if you haven't already, and I hope you all are doing this, but make sure you're cross-referencing your data. Are you pulling in financial aid information to know who has filed, who has not filed? Do your counselors know that already? There are all types of offices and how they progress. Sometimes you have a financial aid counselor and an admission counselor and they don't cross. Really, for the students, there needs to feel like there's a one-stop shop, that everyone's on the same page, that you can have that. So, what are those data points like financial aid, housing, immunization records, what all is coming in? I think those are going to become higher predictors of enrollment than some of our historical numbers, which we've always used that, but even, what forms do they have to turn in order to show up? Prioritize and make critical points for those enrollments. Data you have, also money you have. So money for nothing. Hopefully, before this pandemic hit, hopefully you still had a travel budget that, that was there. What are those funds being used for? Obviously, for many of us, they aren't being used for travel this year, or at least a significant portion is not being used for travel. And so, sometimes you got to spend a little money to get the students that you want. So can you reprioritize that travel budget in order to meet other needs or other things that we're going to talk about kind of coming up next about what can we do to engage and yield these students? And so really when it comes down to it, get creative. You know, it's more than just emails. It's not just send another email. You know, what do you need to do in front of them? It's an email. It's more getting social, which I talked about. Are there true to the time print pieces you can send out? And, you know, and as we get further along in the funnel, you're getting smaller in the amount of students. So can you print a little bit more? Phone calls, text messages, whatever you can do to get in front of them, you're going to need to do this year. You know, one of the things that are really important, we talk about financial aid, is, you know, get personalized financial aid videos. These are becoming more and more popular as financial aid seems to continue to be a point where students or families still don't quite understand those, especially the first time, you know, goers, first gen students and their families. You know, maybe the video of, you know, investing in a video right now is too much, but where can you make financial aid more understandable? Take the jargon out of it within your website. If you manage your own website, being able to edit that down and make sure that it's there. We talked about this a little bit already in the chat, but, you know, don't you forget about me. You got to love on your local students. You know, this is pre-pandemic and even more so now. We take our backyard for granted a lot of the times. You know, they're going to come. Certain schools are always going to send their students, but more and more students are questioning potentially going away, depending on the part of the country that you live in. So making sure you're communicating with them appropriately, that you're addressing their wants and needs. You don't want to just send a blanket message to all your students saying how great your town is when they live in that town. They should know these things already. So what can you tell them, or what ways can you sell staying in there, and what are the benefits of them staying there, instead of giving this blanket message about how great X town is and they're like, yeah, I know, I've lived here my whole life. Make sure that communication is a little bit different. Get personal in that way as well. You know, the big one, answer the question, should I stay or should I go? Students, parents, everyone's having this conversation right now. They need to know, what is my decision going to be? And it's becoming harder to make this decision as the year goes on. You know, hopefully with the times changing slightly, more vaccinations getting out there, cases going down, that it becomes a little easier, but there's going to be the post-pandemic, you know, there's still going on. First of all, people are still dying, people are still getting the coronavirus, but everybody has a different level of safety and security that they feel after this, after really being stuck at home or stuck virtual, and that virtual fatigue we talked about. So, you know, we want to make sure we're creating multi-channel communication flows. You know, we talked about, can you have academic flows, extracurricular communication flows, basically revise all your communication flows to not be what you sent a year and a half ago, but they talk about the time and talk about how life is in pandemic life. We don't want to email them and start talking about all the concerts on campus that you historically had if they're not going to get the experience that now. So you're wanting to talk about what their new, what their college experience is going to look out like at their school for at least that upcoming year, and be honest and be truthful with them about that. And then we really want to make sure we're engaging parents as well. You know, we've heard about, you know, helicopter parents, but now you got prison parents. And Josh, I think this is a term that you've put on there, but I think this is a little bit more that you've been locked at home with them, and they're not wanting people to go away, and they're not wanting out of sight because they are truly concerned for their safety. So how do we continue to explain to these parents the value of the education that you're looking at giving them, and the value of the experience, and how that's going to be safe, and there'll be social distancing for the foreseeable future, and what that looks like as they move forward. And then, you know, allowed for customizations. And this is really going to feed into the next slide that Josh is going to talk about. But really step back and think about, we already talked about, what data do you have that you can use already? What have you asked? Do you know already that they're interested in certain athletics? If you're, you know, maybe a D3 school that, you know, it's a little bit more on that front end admission sides more than the D1 recruiting, or, you know, do you know that they've already marked the interest that they feel like they're going to be involved in at schools? Or do you know things from the resumes that they submitted that they may fall into particular communication flows already? If you don't, what kind of unique quizzes and surveys can you ask to talk about, the next step. What are you doing when you're visiting campus? If you're having a virtual registration or summer visit, open houses, what are you doing to connect with those students when they're there?
Absolutely, I think that's a great point, and I will preface the prison parent comment. Is that, of course, in complete love, but we've been trapped for the last year with each other, parents included, and I think we've all gotten to that point where we just want to go absolute crazy with the folks that are in our houses, and so it's not just having parents and families kind of in your life, they're physically in your space, and it's trying to navigate that whole process. And so of course they're going to have a much more stronger hands-on approach with all of this aspect because the physical space is so tight. But going on to, continuing on, how do we fix it? We said this before in terms of application generation, is creating specific landing pages to segment and streamline communications. When you're communicating via text, via email, you can send them to specific landing pages that, if you have a CRM, and most admissions offices do have a pretty robust CRM these days, there's a few really good options out there, but they're making it easier to create more web pages that look like your website and that are designed to be able to be created fairly quickly. And so this is a great way that you can customize that information quickly and within a couple hours to be able to put something out there that's going to make it very clear. It can be engaging, and yet it can still stay in brand with your institution. The other thing, again, going back to cost is going to be such a defining decision maker this year, is you have to put real post-pandemic ROI out here. There are students that are looking to go into the arts. Like right now, you wouldn't think being a theater major is probably your best option when, theaters have been closed for the last year. Why is that still important? Why is it important that we have students that are in the arts? And what does it bring to your community when we do return back? We're going to value our arts even more because we know what life is like without it. And so it's important to really put those two and two together. We've said this a million thousand times. Segment. This is critical. Nobody no longer wants to be spoken to as a generalization. You have the data, or you should have the data, or some of the data, to be able to speak to me. You should have pretty basics. My major, where I'm located. These are all fairly simple communications that you can customize. Again, going back to the locals, don't tell them about their local hometown. They probably think they know it better than you do. And so that's when you start asking them, what are your favorite places? Where do you want to take your new friends once they get here? It's really engaging them at the level that they are and making sure that you're sending the right message to the right student. I think everybody will feel this one, and I'm particularly feeling this one today since we're having a little bit of a challenge in terms of technology. No more virtual open houses. And what we say is, obviously, we can't shut all of them down. But we do need to try to do more creative opportunities for engagement. We're seeing a lot of studies right now that are saying that students want engagement. They're craving engagement. And it's not going onto a Zoom call and watching your faculty present and then watching an admissions presentation. That's important, yes, but what are ways that you can have an opportunity to engage where they get an opportunity to ask the questions and they get an opportunity to share who they are as a person and really start to engage and connect with the institution, with faculty, and really tapping into your community. Orientation leaders are probably some of the absolutely best trained students on your campus because they're typically at orientation with them for about 20 hours a day for 2 or 3 days. And so they know how to engage. They know how to, answer those hard questions to where you should be able to set them free in something like a Zoom call, to give a group of students that are either by location or by major or something for an orientation leader to reach out and say, hey, I want to meet with kind of you folks and let you talk and engage amongst each other and really get an opportunity to, again, increase that engagement process.
Yeah, I'm totally on board with that, Josh. And I know we all have those students that, handpick them, pick the ones you trust of the cream of the crop. It's the ones that you usually pick for visit days to do student panels as well. The ones you could walk out of the room, and sometimes we made a point like, hey, we're giving you the students, we're going to walk out, please ask them anything. And they get to be honest and truthful, because these students are trained and know the end goal of the visit, or know the end goal of that conversation. They know how to balance that line of being truthful and telling it real, but still keeping it a little bit, I don't want to say sales, but at the end of the day, it is. Find those specific students, because they're going to be the ones that bring you to that next level.
Absolutely. And you'll see in kind of that next slide, we break out, your event experiences. And this is important whether you're doing virtual or whether you're doing on campus. You need to make sure that students are going to visit you multiple times. And again, that's in the traditional sense that they're going to come to a campus visit, they're going to come to an open house, they're going to come to an admitted student day. Again, a lot of that has been moved over to where it is virtual, but still being able to differentiate what information that they need to hear. There are certain messages like financial aid and affordability that you need to have repeated, so that it kind of is hammering into their head, but do it in a way that's different, and do it in a way that's, it is unique to your institution. We all have those traditions that, if you will, that kind of make this process of enrollment, right? Like, you have your admitted student event, which is going to be a personalized day for them. And it really is kind of that defining moment for the student on your campus. And that's when they're deciding and so forth. Well, what are elements of that day that you can transition to a virtual realm? We've even heard there is a school that I have really close ties with, that they have a dinner, and the dinner is always like the big event with alumni. Well, obviously, we're not going to be able to do that this year, right? It's because of COVID, we can't collectively get together. But if your budget allows it, can you, have orders in and have them delivered to your top students, and then collectively set up a Zoom meeting where they get to design their own dining room in celebration of them, and being able to meet and have dinner with an alumni? It's little things like that yes, it's gonna cost. There's gonna be an associated cost with it, but hopefully, like Corey said earlier, you didn't travel. And so that travel budget is typically pretty expansive. So there may be opportunities to get the most bang for your buck.
Yeah, and in my previous experience, when I was doing the campus visit experience, we had a similar chart to this, but being a smaller school, we actually went line for line when it was every visit program that they could have attended. And we actually had one that was internal, that was really for us to understand what are we offering at each one, and even had the time frame. Okay, they're going to get 30 minutes with the faculty, or they're getting an hour and a half with faculty. And the biggest difference in that time frame was, 30 minutes were maybe that one-on-one appointment. We also had, faculty panels, but then on the big one, we would have engagement experiences with faculty. So, the easy ones are always your lab experiences. And I know COVID's throwing that out there and wrenches into these lab experience, but it also was like for criminology, they were given, it was almost like one of the more engaging classes that you'd have. They would talk about that. So it really was, how do we understand what happens at each visit, and two, set the expectation to the family and students, like, oh, if I come to a group visit, I will get this and this, but I'm missing out on the faculty experience or this, which we could get here. And even this, it could be, virtual event experiences, so that they know the expectation of what they want to sign up for, based on the results and the experience that they're going to get virtually. It gives them a little more clarity up front, not that they're just running in and there's all these visit programs, and is it a group presentation, is it pre-recorded, is it live, getting all that information in their hands ahead of time. So, want it dead or alive? Yeah, we want them alive, obviously. But sometimes we push some of these titles in here. But really, what we're wanting here is, this has been the story all year. We want the apps, we want deposits, we want our students. They're all important to us. And so this is where we're really going to jump into some of the ideas and thoughts. And I did want to make sure, Lauren, we did see your question. We'll make sure to put some thoughts out there as well for you. I just didn't want you to think we scrolled past. But we're going to jump right in with the first thought, really.
Yeah, and it does come with a little bit of a disclaimer. This is a bold campaign. Just from the title alone, and I won't repeat it, you get the point. But we talk about, using the student voice to convey your message. It is something that is so critical that you've got to, in your messaging, you've got to embrace your student body. Now, this campaign, I think, would work along a lot of institutions, but a good example that it will not work is if you have any type of religious affiliation. This is probably not the campaign that you want to run. This is not your student's voice. And so while this campaign was wildly successful, and if you aren't offended by it, I encourage you to check them out on Instagram. It's where they post a good bit of their pictures, and it's just a really well done. And I think students had a huge hand in this is, when it came back to returning to campus, and it's Brown University, they went to the students and said, how do we communicate this so that that this is a serious topic and that we want you here, but you have got to be able to abide by these stipulations. And so this campaign was created, and again, it is blazing, it is bolden, but it got the point across, and students are following it pretty well. It really is a very well done, very well thought out campaign, and a good example of listening and using your students' voice. And then what you got some also opportunities is, again, creating experiences. And again, these engaging swag are going to be more expensive. It's just straight off the gate, that it's going to be more than a t-shirt. You're branding the box, you're branding the bottle, you're branding everything that's in there. So yes, it is an investment. But I think it's got multiple points because A, it's getting swag in their hand, which all students love swag. But B, you're creating an experience, at least one that is going to, hopefully, they're going to recognize because it is COVID. We are in the middle of a pandemic. I can't go and do these experiences with other students, but at least I know that an institution is recognizing it, but then also taking it a step further. And so I think these are a great way to convey it. The one in the top left might be a little hard to see, but it's actually a board, nails, and then yarn. And they actually get to do like yarn art over the course of the state. I think it's Illinois. And every kit has a little hammer. It has the nails. It has everything. Again, we're talking, it can be pricey, but there's other options that are out there as well too. But get creative. Think of ways and things that are important and that your students enjoy that you might be able to somehow recreate that's gonna make an impact for them.
And I apologize for anyone that lives in Illinois. Our East Coast friend doesn't know Midwest very well. We'll need to work on that map. Giving me trouble, Josh. Not Illinois. So on top of that, this one is specific to Media Cross. So, but really the thought of it, and we want to talk about it. So we have a product called Visvid that, this is kind of for that engaging content where this was designed originally for students who went to visit a campus. So I know many campuses are having students come to campus and maybe individual on limited basis. But what this is the tour guide would take pictures of the students on various important spots around the campus. And then there's this design video, or I kind of want to call it video slideshow, if you will, that is a reminder of how great their visit was. And then their photos are actually put in this video where they kind of got sent that afterward. It was that re-engagement after a visit. So this one was specific to the visit experience and re-engaging them after they visited campus. And it's a whole video of music. It was this particular one was designed after kind of a game board, which is why you might understand some of those graphics then. And it goes to the game board and goes to different stops. And then their picture came up, as you see the one student here, showing them in the res hall, showing them in front of the famous fountain, or showing them in front of the archway on their campus. That it was a product that the tour guide took 5 pictures, it uploaded them right at the end of the tour, and this automatically sent from their CRM, and it allows also for social engagement and social sharing of that student. Now, this is also a way where, we can pull in, as you can see, Josh's name is on that right side. You can pull in data points, anything you have in the CRM into this. So we're exploring the options for different schools for, can this be your financial aid video where you're pulling data points in, where it is a little bit more explainer video, if you will? Or what other ways can you use? It's not your traditional virtual tour. It's a step back from that, but it's not just this, check out campus online. Here's photos of campus. It's a kind of an engaging way of interacting with campus while still at home, or re-engaging students later. There are multiple options. We've talked about using, like I said, financial aid. There's opportunities for kind of that acceptance, their acceptance, not just a letter, but an actual video with data points in about their acceptance and scholarship. There are a lot of uses for this personalized software that can be used to kind of reconnect or connect with student, to yield the student in many different ways. Then the next 2 examples I'm going to show are examples of reaching out to a student and engaging with them with a quiz or survey. So this particular one is Spelman College. We worked with Spelman to specifically make posters for each student. Students filled out a questionnaire that talked about different questions, what words and statements meant something to them. They got to know them a little bit. And then based on those results, they were sent a personalized poster from Spelman. And as you can see, Spelman was not the focus of this. Spelman's logo is on each poster, but it's not the traditional, I've seen, admissions offices get creative with their travel piece where it folds out to a poster and one side has all your information, the other side has a big logo that a student could put up. It's fine. These were more about engaging them on a personal level. So they were from quotes from different people. I think there's one in our office actually hung up in the office next door that might have been a quote from Michael Jordan. That went maybe to the athletes. And as you can see, there are various things here based on traveling, based on being an activist and things like that. And so really trying to engage student on a personal level. And then they know it came from your school as well was a secondary, but they knew that you understood them in a way that wasn't just, I want you at my school. And kind of another one of that is, Maryville University. We worked with them a few years ago. And they have a model that they work for when you go through recruitment and then start at Maryville. They actually have a life coach guaranteed for at least the first 2 years and potentially for all 4 years that is your person to go to. And so they actually did a learning style quiz ahead of time where students answered so many questions and kind of got to learn what their learning personality was. Are they a tactile learner? Are they a visual? Are they auditory? And then that put them into a communication plan that allowed them to get communicated with specific to that particular learning style. And on top of that, that information, and this is important with information you're gathering too, what information can you gather to the next step? So is that your life coach? Is that the first year advisor? Is that your orientation team? Like what groups can you put them into and have them in communication with early and ahead of time so that they learn more about themselves and how that's going to be valuable to them while they're at that school. And then another one I have done that we don't have an example showing here is more that swag and gifts. So similar concept, they're asking questions, and then based on the results of those questions, they're going to get swag that's specific to their particular results, that they're going to get something, and Josh showed some of those more expensive boxes, but even if it's just one thing and sent in a unique way, that is a little bit more personable, that connects their experience that they identify with your school.
says you can't go home. Like Corey said earlier, I think we've pushed a few of these titles, but NACAC regulations now. It just makes May 1 not fit for anybody else. And I think it's important to still track. Don't get me wrong. It's still important to see how you're trending at that point, especially year over year, but don't let it be the end all result for you, because we know this timeline has just been so different than this year. Is that, yes, it is important to look at it, but don't base your entire life off of what your May 1 numbers are going to look like.
So that kind of leaves us in starting to get to the end. And, you know, I believe some of you may have seen this before, but I wanted to share. I don't even know if that actually, did you guys hear that? But don't know if it actually played through. We'll make sure to send it in the chat, but the video is the final brain cell instead of the final countdown, and really understanding that next step. You know, it's going to be war. The rest isn't going to be easier. We have a great Rambo photo here for everyone to really think about what is that next step. You know, there are options here, and then Lauren here, I'm gonna, unless Josh already answered, I will post, and we can email you, Lauren, some of those ideas specific to you know, landing pages, since you have to run to another meeting. But you know, we'll be able to talk about those. But being creative, getting in front of these students in different ways, and just being there for them is gonna be huge.
Yeah, and your timeline is just gone. Kind of like what I mentioned earlier, is that the timeline, we've seen it already in terms of application generation, and the apps are still probably coming in for you. That expectation that your timeline is even it's gone. It has completely gotten blown up. It is on its own realm. And just be ready for that. You know, just understand that it's not just your institution, it's across the board. And so as you're having conversations with leadership in your campus community, yes, you can kind of give accurate updates and tell more, but then also say, you know what, we're not the only folks that are in this. We're not the only ones that are feeling these challenges. This is coming across the entire industry.
You know, and if you still haven't found what you're looking for, you know, we are here for you. As a boutique agency, we work in pretty much every area of the enrollment funnel, but specifically that you could think of, you know, web development, digital marketing, research and discovery, concept and development. You know, we're here. If you need some support, need some conversation, Josh and I are always here to continue conversations from today, to, you know, bounce ideas off each other, give you some good thoughts about what you can do next in order to continue to try to meet those goals, and especially, you know, this year and specific to this, you know, meet your yield goals that you're needing in order to meet your class this fall.
Absolutely. And that can, you know, that can happen even with an hour conversation. Like Lauren, unfortunately, had to run to another meeting, but we can follow up and do a 20-minute call and just say, okay, where are your challenges right now? What's going on? What are things that you can do today that are that they're going to specifically impact your yield? How can you turn one of your events into a virtual opportunity? Sometimes just having that extra kind of voice to kind of hash things out. I know that when I was on your side of the desk, that was having that insight from somebody else, just to have that focused time to say, this is how we can approach it, is just so incredibly valuable. That's kind of the opportunities we want to provide.
Well, and I know too, Josh, same situation of sometimes that leadership doesn't always, you know, going up to the president, going up to the board, whatever it is, leadership doesn't always hear it from you, even though you've been saying it for a year. But as soon as an outside agency comes in and says, we've worked with, you know, Josh, and, you know, we really think this would make a difference for you. And they're like, oh, okay, yeah, you know, this is great to hear. Well, they've been, you've probably been saying it from the mountaintop for a year now, but sometimes having that third party come in and say it makes it a little bit more real for those, because other people outside of the organization are noticing it. It's not just something people feel internally, it's something that's noticeable outside as well.
Absolutely.
And so we really, again, just want to say thank you for jumping on. As always, we want you to be excellent to each other and party on. But as Josh and I just said, we are available to talk to you if you need anything from us. Our emails are here, our LinkedIn profiles are here. Please reach out, friend us. As I said, we will be posting on the Media Across LinkedIn page, asking how many 80s rock references were made throughout the presentation. And again, have a little swag that we can send out to the person who gets closest. And we're here to connect. You can connect with us. You can reach out to us, LinkedIn, email, whatever it is. Let us know what you need. And if you, I got to look at the actual date, but if you wanted to put on your calendar now, we will be having another webinar in 2 months in April. I got to look at the specific date here. Unless you have it quicker than me, Josh, see how quick you are.
I'm looking at it now.
So we will be talking about search on April 22nd. It's like how and when to revamp your search strategy. So, kind of a preview, we will be talking about, you may not need to buy all those search names that you currently buy and spend thousands upon thousands of dollars on. There are other opportunities that are going to be much more affordable and potentially giving you more access to understand where those students may be and how you can reach them.
Absolutely. And thank you again from us. We really value those that are coming to our webinars, and we hope that it's really of value to you and that you're getting clear takeaways after every session that we have, because really we are to benefit of you. So we appreciate your time. We know how valuable it is, and we just want to let you know that it does really mean a lot to us.
Perfect. Thank you all. Have a great day.